Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll explore the basics of creating frames, working with shapes and manipulating objects in Figma. We'll also dive into colors, gradients, and effects, as well as exporting your design. Let's start with creating a frame. Frames are containers for your design elements. Think of them as artboards in other design tools. To create a frame, simply click on the frame icon or press the F key. You can either create a frame with a custom width and height, or select a frame from a range of presets in the right sidebar, representing popular device screens and paper sizes. For example, let's choose the iPhone 13 preset. You can see that a new frame is created with the exact dimensions of an iPhone 13 screen. We also have the option to select a frame for desktop sizes, such as the MacBook Pro 14-inch, which is ideal for creating web designs. Let's go ahead and remove the preset frames. Now you'll learn how you can easily duplicate a layer in Figma using keyboard shortcuts. Hold down the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows while clicking and dragging the frame you wish to duplicate. To maintain the same vertical or horizontal position while duplicating, simply hold down the Shift key in addition to the Option or Alt key. Next, let's learn how to move around the canvas. A lot of designers left-click and then drag into the direction they want to move. While this does work, it's not very effective. A better way is to use the hand tool, which you can activate by pressing and holding the space bar and then dragging with your mouse in the desired direction. You can also move horizontally by holding down the Shift key and scrolling with your mouse up and down. Now we'll explore how to create various shapes in Figma. To make a rectangle, either press the R key or choose the rectangle from the Shape tools. Now, click on a spot in the canvas and drag to create the rectangle. For asymmetrical object like a square or circle, hold the Shift key while dragging. This ensures that the object maintains the same width and height. Let's now add ellipse to our square. Select ellipse from the Shape tools. Select a spot in the canvas and drag in any direction. If you want to create a perfect circle, you have to hold down the Shift key while dragging. Next, we'll create another rectangle. You may have noticed that there's a blue bounding box with a handle in each corner around every layer you have selected. This allows you to resize the shape. Next, we'll create a hexagon using the Polygon tool. The Polygon tool allows you to draw an enclosed shape that is made up of any number of straight lines. The default shape for the Polygon tool is a triangle, but you can add extra points to the object to create your own custom polygons. We'll change the count from 3 to 6, so our polygon now became a hexagon. Lastly, we'll create a star. The star tool creates polygons that are arranged in a star shape. When you create a star layer, the default will be a 5-pointed star with 10 sides. We now have 3 settings we can use to manipulate the star. Count, which represents the number of points there are to the star. Corner radius, which allows you to round the points. And ratio, which is the distance of the inner points of the star from the center. This is represented as a percentage of the star's diameter. Now that we have our star, which looks more like a sun, let's see how we can make it smaller. If I simply change the width size, I will destroy the shape of our star. To resize the star without distorting its shape, avoid dragging only the width or height. Instead, use the Scale tool by pressing key on your keyboard. This way, the object's width and height will be adjusted equally, maintaining the star's symmetry. Great, let's continue. Select the rectangle and navigate to the right sidebar. Under the Fill section, you can modify the object's color by either clicking on the small rectangle or by inputting the hex value directly. Next, we'll change the circle's color using the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool allows you to select and sample colors from any object or image. Now I'll quickly add colors to the remaining objects. Adjusting opacity is as simple as dragging the handle, and you can even switch between color code formats like RGB or CSS. Beneath this, you'll find document colors that you can easily copy. You can also adjust the opacity here, which may be more convenient. Right next to the opacity control, you can toggle the visibility of the color by clicking on the eye icon. If you prefer, you can remove the fill entirely, leaving the object with no color inside. Let's now learn how to change the size of objects. In this section, you can adjust the position, width, and height of your objects. While you can adjust the width by dragging one of the edges of an object, it's easier to adjust it here when you need more precision as you can input precise value. If you want to adjust your width and height equally, you can turn on the constrain proportions. Conversely, if you want to adjust just the height of the object, turn off the constrain proportions. In this section, you can also adjust the rotation of your object. Alternatively, you can hover over any corner of your selected object and rotate it either clockwise or anti-clockwise. To rotate an object by 15-degree steps, hold the Shift key while rotating. Lastly, we can adjust the corner radius of an object. By default, all corners will be adjusted equally. But if you want to adjust only specific corners, click on the Independent Corners icon. Now, let's see what we can do with the circle. When you hover over the circle, a single handle will appear on the right side. This point determines where you can begin to create an arc. The ratio handle at the center of the circle allows you to change the circle to a ring. The sweep indicates how complete the circle is, shown by the percentage of the circle that is filled. The start handle indicates where the arc begins. The starting position of the handle is set to 0. But you can drag this around the circle to change the position of the ring. Great. Now let's have a look at gradients. When you add fill, by default, you will get a solid color. However, you can change it to a gradient, for example, linear. Now you can choose the colors you want to use for your gradient, and even add more colors if you want by clicking on the gradient slider just above the color panel. You can also change the direction of your gradient by grabbing the handles and adjusting their positions. Next, we have the radial gradient, which places the first value in the middle and the second value closer to the edges. The angular gradient is more complex and not used very often, but it can create very unique gradients. Awesome! We've learned how to add and adjust the fill, and now we'll have a look at the stroke. Click the plus sign next to stroke to add a new stroke. By default, you'll get a black stroke with 1 pixel width, but you can customize it. You can also choose whether the stroke will be inside, outside, or centered on the shape. Great. Let's move on to effects. In Figma, there are 4 types of effects: drop shadow, inner shadow, layer blur, and background blur. Let's start with a drop shadow. Drop shadows are a great way to add depth and dimension to your design. To add effect, click on the plus sign. To adjust the effect settings, click on the effect settings icon. Now we can play with the settings to get the desired result. The X value offsets the drop shadow horizontally, while the I value offsets the drop shadow vertically. With fill, you can apply paint using the color picker and set opacity for the shadow. You can also adjust the blur of the shadow. Increase the blur if you want to soften the shadow and blend it with the background, and decrease the blur if you want to create a sharper contrast. With spread, you adjust the size of the shadow. Like drop shadows, inner shadows allow you to create depth within two-dimensional designs. Instead of creating a shadow behind your selection, Figma will apply a shadow within the layer or object. This contains the shadow within the layer's bounds. The next effect is layer blur, which will make your objects blurry. To intensify the blur, simply increase this value. Lastly, we have the background blur. When you apply a background blur to a layer, Figma will blur any layers behind your selection on the canvas. You can use background blur to create glass effects, which are a popular trend in UI design. To actually see a background blur, your selection will need to have an appropriate opacity. Your objects in the background will start to become blurry. Now, let's have a look at how you can export your designs. First, select the content you want to export. This could be a single layer, multiple objects, or everything on the canvas. To add an export setting, click the plus icon at the top of the export section. Figma supports a variety of export formats and settings. For example, if you select 2x, your exported selection will be twice the size of what's in your file. Additionally, you can choose the desired export format. Once you're satisfied with the settings, simply click the export button.